Open up your eyes, take a look at me. Get the picture fixed in your memory. I'm driven by the rhythm like the beat of a heart. And I won't stop until I start to stand out.
All right, everybody, welcome to the LorcanaCast, your premier Disney trading card game podcast. My name is Sugi, and we are here to talk all about the brand new trading card game that was announced at the D23 Expo just a few weeks ago. So with me are my amazing hosts, Chris and James. How is everybody doing today?
Awesome, man.
I am doing better than I deserve, my friend.
So for those of you listening, you probably have no idea who we are. So we're going to talk a little bit about ourselves. So let's kick it off over to James. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your trading card game history, your knowledge of nerddom, what you do, and, introduce yourselves to all these wonderful listeners.
Well, guys, we'd like to thank you so much for coming to hang out. We really appreciate it. But my name is James. I have many different names, actually, but James and or Skeff is usually a good reference for myself. And I am a huge nerd for pretty much my entire life. I enjoy the comic books. I enjoy the trading cards. I enjoy the animes, the mangas, the Disney. I enjoy all of it. And right now, this game has me, it gives me all the beard tingles. You can't see my face, but I have a massive beard. My beard is a tingling about this game. So I'm very excited about this.
You got enough beard for like all of us can put together.
Once you see us in person, if we ever do like a live show, you'll see it's pretty much my trademark for this. But my background is I have played the Pokemon competitively. I have played the Magic competitively. And I have also played Sugi can attest. I've played a couple Star Wars games that I've been pretty good at competitively.
Yep.
So that is my background, and I'm also a huge Marvel, Disney comic fan as well. So that's kind of a little background on myself.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about what got your attention to talk about Lorcana and get into it, because I know the three of us have been busy kind of doing our own things. We've known each other for a couple of years now, but we didn't have any connection point necessarily. And then when Lorcana hit, we all started talking like, oh, this could be something special. And that kind of sparked bringing this team together to talk about the show. So like, what was it that got your beard to tingle in there?
Oh man, I love it. So for me, a little feedback, I'm married, got a couple kids, and I sell comic books full time. So I had to kind of hang up my dice, guys. I had to hang up my dice, put away the standard decks for a little bit, and kind of take care of life. And there hasn't been a game that has come out in quite some time that really kind of like triggered all of my like, oh, Disney? Oh, trading card game? Oh, easy printability? Oh, collectible? I can get this stuff graded? Oh, man. It kind of like hit everything. And also the biggest thing for me, too, is a lot of games that have come out recently that I did enjoy playing, they kind of run out of ideas. But with this IP, they can never run out of ideas. They have their own IP. It's insane.
So you think we're gonna get some X-Men cards in the future?
I think we're gonna get X-Men cards.
I hope so.
I think we're gonna get all of our Disney princesses, including the Alien Queen. We're gonna get Star Wars cards.
She is a princess. She is a princess.
She is a
on what grounds? Hold on there.
Oh, this is where my comic book knowledge comes into play. My
Yeah,
friend.
I was gonna say, Mr. Comic Book Salesman,
knowledge.
sell
Absolutely.
this idea to me.
Absolutely. So what happens is now the concept, the identity, the Marvel, the Predator and Alien concept is now owned by Marvel, and now they've released Marvel comics of Predator and of Alien recently in the past couple months. So now officially the Predator and Aliens characters are all underneath the Marvel umbrella, which makes the Alien Queen a Disney princess.
I don't know how to feel about that statement.
It's okay. You just have to accept it and wear the blanket. And then when we get the Alien Queen card and she's fighting Elsa, we're going to lose our mind. Because I think that concept going forward, where we all obviously going to be Disney characters. We have Elsa, we have Cruella, we have Maleficent, we have like the classic Disney. But as the game evolves, they're going to have sets and then subsets. And then you really get to play with the entire Disney umbrella, which casts a net over so many IPs that they can literally not run out of ideas. There's like 45 different Spider-Man characters. There's like 20 different Mickey Mouse characters. They can do anything.
Oh man, you're getting my hopes up. I'm so excited.
See, that's why though, because of my years of collecting comics, my years of collecting cards and playing the games, the biggest issue was you run out of ideas, or the game doesn't know how to ramp up properly. With this game, I see you can probably ramp up to keep all the original cards still have value. It has collectability. You can have the uniqueness, like you could build an entire Disney Princess deck, or you can build I think there's just gonna be so much customizing within this game, and it looks like it's very simple to play, but once again, probably very difficult to master, which is the most kind of crucial parts about these trading card games.
Yep. I need a henchman aggro deck with LeFou from
Right.
from
like
Beauty
an
and
all
the Beast, leading the charge.
Yeah, just an all villain deck, or an all sidekick deck, or all side villain deck. You can do anything.
That'd be so much fun.
See? And that's why.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. All right, so that is a great opportunity to kind of pivot over to Chris or Mr. Bates, however you want to go by. But tell us a little bit about yourself, your history with trading card games, and what grabbed your interest for Lorcana.
Yeah, for sure. So again, welcome everybody. I'm really excited to be here. Name's Chris Bates. Call me Chris Bates, whatever people want to call me. But I've been playing card games for most of my life. Like most people, got into Magic when I was a young guy. Played, I would say, kitchen table Magic mostly for through my childhood and my teenage years, and really got into the Fantasy Flight games about 10 years ago. I live in Minnesota, and Fantasy Flight games was headquartered in Minnesota. So Netrunner, if you know those kind of games, Game of Thrones. A really popular one I played a ton of was called Warhammer 40K. The living card game. So I was really competitive in that for many years. I met these guys playing a game called Star Wars Destiny.
Oh, that's right. That's how we all met, isn't it?
That's
Isn't that how we all met, isn't it?
I've heard of this game.
Man, this is so
another great game that ended way too soon.
Yes.
This is not the game you're looking for.
No.
That's not how the fourth works.
I'm a janitor.
Oh. Okay. And then we'll package that later. We'll have a whole episode about the janitor.
And I'll get us into the Death Star, guys.
And the mob moving.
This is going to be fun.
For the last 3 years, I've been involved in a game called Flesh and Blood. It's not scary. I know the name is pretty intimidating. It actually stands for playing the game in person in the Flesh and Blood as opposed to playing online. So it's a trading card game, which I have been part of in the competitive scene. But really, my focus nowadays is really about community building. And I'm a judge for that game, and I hope to do the same for this game. I really like to build communities around games. And I like bringing people together to play games. So you can't play card games by yourself. So that's always my theme, is to bring people together and have fun playing these games.
Okay, so you've had a long experience with multitudes of games, so you know what you're talking about. But Lorcana comes out, gets an announcement at D23. Now all of a sudden you're on this team with the four of us. There's actually someone else who's going to be joining us in the near future. They're actually on vacation, traveling Europe, and luckily going to Disneyland Paris. So we got some more Disney folks coming to join. But Lorcana grabbed your eye. Why is this a thing? Yeah,
so I have an 8-year-old daughter, Olivia, who obviously I would hope to bring into my nerddom. It's like the more you try to throw nerddom on kids, I'm sure James could to attest to this too. You don't want to throw too much at them because they'll just run away. So I
mean, listen, as a fellow father of 2 boys, he's speaking the truth. It's a very gentle, here's a few things here,
right,
and let their brain kind of oh, yes,
come over,
more, nom, nom, nom. This could be great.
So she does enjoy Disney. I think we went to Disneyland this summer. She had a blast, and she's really at that age where Disney's very magical. We have played some of the Pokemon game, which I'm sure we'll talk about all these. We're throwing a lot of names out there. We'll talk about that as time goes on and break down what these different games are and how they may relate to Lorcana. But she has played Pokemon with me. She enjoys that. But I'm really hopeful that this is a game that thematically she will enjoy, and I'm really hopeful that mechanically she will also enjoy it.
I love that, dude. So guys, as a father and as someone Chris points out, for the Pokemon scene, shout out to all the Pokemon moms and dads out there that have taken these kids to every tournament imaginable, because that is such a huge foundation for that game.
Right.
It's true.
And I really hope that this is, on the same, kind of that same level that's not so ultra competitive as some of the other card games we'll talk about, but really is open to everybody. And that, I guess we'll see a lot more in the coming months about where the mechanically the game's at and what level it's at. But I feel like based on what we heard so far, it's really going to be a game that we can play with your child, which is what my hope is.
Yeah, another big thing I think that's interesting about Lorcana is the team has said in multiple interviews they're not trying to reinvent the wheel. They're just trying to create a game that people can play. And so trading card game players will have, they'll have all these combos and they'll find synergies and they'll find a lot of things that revolve around like deck construction. But at the same point, the game looks and feels simple enough based on the limited amount of information that we have where, you can play it with your kids can play it with each other, you can go to an event. And so it's not like, you're playing adult to child. It's kind of like a peer-to-peer. It doesn't matter who you are or how old you are. There's something in there for every individual player to pull from the game. And that's a big thing that looks super cool. Because if you think about the traditional Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon, they're kind of built around a system of, hey, we're going to have events at stores. We're going to have sealed product. We're going to have singles. We're going to have all kinds of different ways you can participate. But the fundamental part of the game is you have to play against someone else. And it doesn't necessarily facilitate like a cooperative vibe. It's more of a competitive vibe. And I think Lorcana, it'll be competitive, but I think there's also opportunities for cooperative play based on the way that these cards say, opponent character, which, that could mean multiplayer or like 2v2, like, father and son, father and daughter versus somebody else. Like it's very ambiguous, but not in like a bad way. Like there's a lot of hope, I think.
Right.
I completely agree. I think that they're going to try to take the best aspects of both Pokemon and Magic. So for example, like Magic is known for the variety of types of games you can play, like Two-Headed Giant, Commander, things like that. Pokemon, not so much. Normally you kind of just have the heads-up style play, but Pokemon has that massive collectability to it, which is where I think they're going to try to combine those concepts, where you can have the massive variety of types of content play with that collectability, which is a source of life for all these newer types of games.
I mean, can you imagine? So a little bit of a tangent before I introduce myself, but we're getting into the weeds. So
Right.
For those of you who play Magic the Gathering, they've started doing full art stained glass window prints for cards.
They're gorgeous.
They're absolutely beautiful. If you don't know what we're talking about, just go to Google and type in, Magic the Gathering stained glass alternate art card. And so they basically take a piece of art on the standard card that might be worth $3, and they have a full art print, which removes some of the lines and some of the boxy text, and it's a little more expensive, might be like $5. And then you'll have this full art stained glass window print that is completely brand new, an alternative art version, and it might go for like $15, but ooh, it's beautiful. It's the same card with the same effect. So if you're playing in an event, you could buy the $2 card and you'll have the same effect as the $15 card. The value of the card is just based on the rarity and the artwork, but the playability doesn't change. As a collector and someone who wants to see unique pieces of art, I think Lorcana is actually a really great opportunity for Disney and Ravensburger to do some really interesting things if they should so choose.
So Sugi, who are you?
Yeah, we have saved the best for last. The great Sugi is joining us.
Oh
yeah, listen, mate, guys. Here's how it's gonna work. This is the great Sugi, and that's how you have to refer to him as. The only reason this podcast exists is because of the great Sugi. So please, sir, introduce yourself to the masses.
My name is Sugi. I've been doing podcasting and creation of like any kind of content for a long time, like 20 plus years. I'm actually a professional television video editor and an audio engineer. My experience in like gaming is pretty much across the board, just like James and Chris. I've played all of the big three professionally. So Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon. There's pretty much no trading card game I haven't played. Like my love is trading card games. I like getting into the weeds. I like making competitive decks. I also like teaching. I really, really love seeing new players come into the hobbies and, answering questions and facilitating a really healthy and safe environment, because there's a lot of different games and a lot of different events you can go to where, younger players or newer players are just kind of like frowned upon as if they're, less than human for whatever reason. There's kind of this uppity attitude and atmosphere sometimes. And I really hate that. So, going into playing any trading card game, any game in general, I'm a big fan of helping, bring new people in, answering questions, trying to help be a resource, and create a really overall friendly environment. I also used to work for Disney, so I don't anymore, which is why we can have this show. Otherwise, conflict of interest. But I have worked in the parks. I've done other things for the company before, and it's a lot of fun. I'm a huge Disney fan, obviously. So, combining Disney, which is a huge love of mine. Actually, I used to live in California, so we went to Disneyland all the time. We lived in Hollywood, so we're right down the street. So I remember, if people are listening, but back in the day when there was a parking lot across from the parks, not California Adventure. I remember when they built that. I remember when they built Indiana Jones. I think it was in 1995, and they ate up the Eeyore side of the parking lot. That's actually where we used to park, because the entrance to Disney is kind of like a giant U, and the Eeyore side was, if you're looking at the park entrance, was on the left side. But they also had a sidewalk that you could park and then directly walk to the front of the park. Everywhere else, you had to get some kind of tram, or you were really, really far away. So it was like the best hidden secret. And then they announced, "Oh, we're opening Indiana Jones." Great. Where? Well, your parking lot. We're like, dang. Okay. Got us.
Disney giveth, Disney taketh away.
Disney taketh away. Yeah. So I actually was working out in California last year. So I was there. I actually was at the parks after they opened for COVID. So they literally opened in, I think, April. I was there in June. I got to see Avengers Campus and all that stuff, like less than a month. Yeah. Got to ride Spider-Man Web Slingers. Like I'm a huge Disney fan. For my birthday this year, so like a couple months ago, I decided, yeah, screw it. I'm going to go fly out to Orlando for one day, get a Dole Whip and ride as many things as I can. So I'm very committed to the Disney side of things, man. But yeah, I love games. I've just been playing games all my life, and that's part of my career now, actually, is, developing, designing, selling games. So it's fun. It's a really great hobby, and it's just a fantastic group of people.
No, this is going to be I think with the backgrounds, and especially the fourth individual we'll be adding, there's a good variety, and I do believe there'll be some heated debates, which will be very entertaining for you guys on this show, as long as we can do it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I guarantee we're going to have some really good conversations, and, people who are listening, if you ever want to kick in an idea or a question, we're more than happy to participate in answering that. You can find us on Facebook and Twitter at LorcanaCast. So, if anything just pops in your brain, you're like, I want to hear them talk about this, tweet at us, send us a message on Facebook, and we'll definitely, field as many as we can. But something fun on the Disney side before we get into the trading card game side, let's talk about your favorite character or movie. And I want to preface this with OG classic Disney. So we're going to we're going to ignore the Star Wars and the Marvel and all the IPs.
You just took all of my favorite ones.
The Simpsons. Yeah. Yeah. No Deadpool from, no Ryan Reynolds.
I was going to say Nightcrawler. I mean, come on, man.
And obviously we're all adults. No inappropriate ones as well either. Come on now, guys.
Are there?
But Pamela, I love. Never mind. Yeah. All right. You know her. You know what that. Yeah.
I know you're not.
Stan Lee was a spicy man. That's all I'm going to say about that.
Amazing.
So for the fun of Lorcana, as they said, they're pulling from traditional Disney classics. So think about Betamax, movies. We're gonna reach into the old.
Well, they have Elsa. They have Elsa.
You're not wrong. Yeah, she's definitely. I guess popular Disney characters in the Disney franchise. So currently they're not utilizing Pixar. They're not utilizing Star Wars or Marvel or any of that stuff. So think Disney. So, who wants to go first? What's a favorite movie or character?
I'll go first. I will start. I will say, I've been thinking about this. I will say Lion King, just because that probably was my first memory of a Disney movie that really spoke to me, I don't know when that came out, but I was young, and I remember seeing it in the theater, really being emotionally moved by it. So Simba, Lion King, Scar, all that, right? Great flick.
And then your favorite character?
Well, I guess I would say Scar. Probably is that bad to say Scar? I feel like the evil uncle.
We just know what deck you'll be playing. All villains, please. Give me the ones that ruin kids' childhood.
Yeah.
I'm guessing Scar would be mill. We'll get into that later, but I'm guessing Scar would be mill probably. That would be make the deck perfect for me.
Yeah, I have a special effect. Like if you play a Scar and someone has a Mufasa, you instantly kill him.
Wow.
Ooh,
Guys,
wow.
this be prepared. There's going to be some savage things going on this podcast. So this is yeah. Whew,
I see what you did there with that "be prepared" jab. You know, be prepared. Dun 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 dun.
Which will lead perfectly into my favorite. I'll go with my favorite Disney character first. My favorite Disney character is, and there is no competing, this is the best Disney character.
Oh, wow.
It is the genie from Aladdin.
Oh,
sure.
That is.
Oh, hold on. Robin Williams, right?
Yes.
Okay,
Right.
okay.
Yes. Yeah. Genie, Aladdin, phenomenal. That is hands down my favorite character.
Can I call you Al or Din?
Yeah, right? Like, it's such, like, there hasn't been a more iconic character in all, like, it's just, that is, like, when I think of Disney movies and I think of someone and a character, I'm like, oh, the genie. It's just, it's just perfect. And even with the other secondary movies that didn't do great, he was still,
Right.
hanging around, hanging out. And then I guess to go with my favorite Disney movie, that's a really tough one for me because there's just a treasure trove of just so much goodness coming out of that vault. That is,
I need you to say Emperor's New Groove. I need to hear these words.
I mean, Cusco is. I'm gonna like. I really want to go back and like. I feel we should do a later on date once we've like kind of maybe went back through all the Disney ones. But like right now, one that I can like rewatch like pretty consistently is probably like Lilo and Stitch.
Oh,
Like,
okay.
That one's one where like it's not too, like there isn't really like a love story interest. It's more about family, and I really enjoy the ones that are more about family rather than like this kind of like love triangle thing or whatever happens. So, but yeah, I definitely enjoy like Lilo and Stitch. That for me is like a really fun Disney movie that I could just kind of go back to with because I have two boys, so that's one that they enjoy.
Okay, yeah. That Lilo and Stitch is a solid movie. So my favorite character, this might be a technicality, but Jack Skellington, because Nightmare Before Christmas was made by it was Miramax. I'll have to look it up. Someone in chat's gonna be like, no, it was such and such. I don't recall which Disney subsidiary made Nightmare Before Christmas.
Wait, let me stop you for a second. We wanted to do Marvel. We wanted to do,
No.
Star Wars.
Thank you, Chris.
You get to do Nightmare Before Christmas on technicality. What is going on here?
No, it was totally a Disney
Thank
movie.
you, Chris.
Oh my God.
It was
All right.
It was Touchstone Pictures, by the way.
Touchstone, yeah, that's right. It was Touchstone. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So I guess if I can't get this technicality, I'm getting
Wow.
pulled out.
Listen,
we were told classic Disney.
It's classic, maybe. All right. If I have to submit to the panel, then Pinocchio, absolutely one of my favorite characters.
For sure.
And it has nothing to do with the new Tom Hanks movie. Like I haven't seen that yet. I'm going to watch it.
I want the new Guillermo del Toro one.
Oh,
That's the one I want. I want that one. I like my dark stuff.
See, I'm ready for his version of the Haunted Mansion because the Eddie Murphy version I did not like, and we can talk about that at a later date. But it was just too goofy, and like, is it bad that I liked the Muppets Haunted Mansion better than the Eddie Murphy Haunted Mansion?
Well,
like,
technically, every Muppets movie of whatever IP they use is the best version of that IP
because it's Muppets.
Yeah.
Well, hold on. I have an argument here because
I'm ready
the
for
Muppet
it.
Christmas Carol
Was
I don't think
the
is
best
as
Christmas Carol.
But I love the Scrooge Christmas Carol.
Yeah, Bill Murray.
But that really wasn't like Christmas Carol. It was just Bill Murray being.
It was okay.
All right. You're drinking the haterade, man. The flavor, the colors are coming through here.
I am.
You're probably the guy who's going to play Elsa Control and be like, all right, exert yourself. I'm like, what?
I will.
Yeah,
I absolutely will. You come on. I play Jabaduku. You know I'm going to do some dumb things.
I know. Yeah, I'm a control player too.
Yep.
But we'll talk about that. Okay, favorite Disney movie. Honestly, I've been jamming on Emperor's New Groove recently. It's still funny, which is weird because people are trying to make all these like hilarious movies nowadays, and that movie's pretty old for what it is.
It is actually.
Yeah.
And like it still makes me laugh, and I know exactly what's going to happen, and it's still really funny. Like Kronk.
Wrong
Kronk-
level.
Kronk and Yzma are like the perfect duo. It's like new Hades. Like if you have like generations of funny characters, like Hades was definitely like the sassy friend.
Ooh, Hercules.
Yeah. I would love to
Hercules.
see a Hades card. I won't lie. I need him to like do something spicy. But yeah, like Kronk and Yzma are basically if Hades like split into two people, I feel.
Oh, I like that. That's a good analogy.
Yeah, because there's frustration and anger, and then like kind of a gentle heart, but just a really strong body that has no consideration for what's going on around him. Oh yeah, so those are my two. But for those of you who are listening, let us know in the comments what is your favorite Disney character. What is your favorite Disney movie? That's kind of the fun thing about Lorcana is like James was talking about. There's an unlimited range of IP, and that gives so much space to the designers to create sets. And that's kind of what we're going to be talking about here in this next piece of the show is, fundamental trading card game terms and ideas. So we're fully aware that a lot of people listening may or may not know anything about trading cards. You might be listening, you're like, man, I don't know what a Magic is or Yu-Gi-Oh or Pokemon. Like, I'm going to assume that like people kind of know what it is, kind of like D&D. Like you're aware, like it's a game and you play cards, but you may or may not have knowledge of specific terms, abilities, like deck archetypes. So it's like when we were talking earlier, joking about, Jabba Dooku and Control. That's a type of deck that we played in Star Wars Destiny. And so we're going to kind of get into some of these fundamental terms. So that way, when you see people post articles and YouTube videos and podcasts, we're all kind of in the know because there's a long range of vernacular and it can absolutely be confusing. Like there's so many different terms across the board. So let's start with, some of the classic terms you guys have heard and you want to talk about because like there's a lot. There's so many different things we could kick in. But, what are some of your favorite terms that people talk about that a newer player may or may not actually know about?
Tapped? No, they probably, I don't know.
That's actually not a bad one. So tapping and exertion in Lorcana is essentially the equivalent.
Yes.
Exert,
right?
We assume.
Assume.
I mean, it's a pretty good assumption, I believe. But I want to, these are all assumptions because obviously none of us know. There's no rules at this point. We look back on this in 2 years and we're just speculating. But
you mean wait? You guys didn't get the email from Ryan today?
Darn.
What?
You missed that email? I got that email.
Didn't. Can you forward that to me?
I will, absolutely.
I will say this is probably pretty. I mean, if you look at the card, the actual card, it does show a card being actually like flipped. So I feel
interesting.
Like,
yeah, right.
Yeah, like it does like a tap symbol. So tapping or exerting would be when you mark your card, you turn it sideways. Usually, is a physical turning of the card to indicate you've used it. So that might be using the ability. They may be using it in some games as a resource. I would say more commonly is saying I've used this ability of this card. Maybe it's like drawing a card, or maybe it's like picking. We would expect Elsa. Maybe we'll talk about these in the future. I know each individual card, but maybe Elsa is going to assumably pick another character to tap to make so you can't use them.
Yeah, so their ability is the freeze, right? It says exert chosen opposing character, and little symbol next to it's very interesting. It's a hexagon, right? Hexagon 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Yeah.
And it has a card that's turned sideways with an arrow pointing, like kind of like that half circle.
Right.
So it's really interesting whether you flip the card over entirely or you just kind of shift it.
I'm pretty confident based on the artwork, and if you look at Magic the Gathering and the tap symbol, which they have trademarked,
yes,
it's very similar.
Yes.
So I'm going to assume pretty much like everyone has so far that you rotate the card 90 degrees to the right.
Yep.
Or if you're a rebel like me and I'm left-handed, I rotate it 90 degrees to the left.
No.
Oh, yeah, he does. Yeah. He's that savage. He is that savage, and he actually throws you off your game. You think he's cheating. Did you tap that already? Yeah, I did. It just
I've had people be like, "What are you doing?" Well, tapping as a mechanic in Magic specifically says rotate the card 90 degrees, not in a specific direction. So it is a legal maneuver. But I'm also left-handed, so my brain is left. I'm weird.
He's a southpaw. We like southpaws.
All right, you. But another thing I wanted to talk about, since we're bringing up Elsa, is if you look at her card where it says freeze and it has that little exerty symbol, like hey, rotate this card, there's a little dash and it says exert chosen opposing character. So the next term I want to talk about is cost and effect, because you are going to hear about this a lot when people start reviewing cards and people start speculating on card ability powers. And so the way cost and effect works is you pay a cost and then you have an effect. So Elsa is a perfect example. The expectation is you must rotate her 90 degrees. And if you do that, then you can exert another opponent character. If she is already like rotated 90 degrees or exerted, you can't do it again because she's already sideways.
Right. And it's and assumably, again, this is all speculating. I don't want to keep saying that, but you couldn't do something else with her, whatever this game is going to be about directly dealing some type of damage or attacking. If I don't know what the term will be in this game, but you wouldn't be able to do that normal mode of attack. There we go. Challenging
and banishing.
You wouldn't be able to challenge when you use her ability, right?
Right. Well, we don't know how challenging and banishing works.
Right.
If it's based off of Magic the Gathering, you tap or exert your card and declare an attack based on the wording for the cards. So we're pulling from Captain Hook here. His templating states he has an ability called Challenger +2. And in parentheses, it says, when challenging, this character gets +2 attack. And then we're going to use Cruella de Vil's templating to kind of solve this puzzle.
Ooh,
she says, you'll be
approve.
sorry. When this character is challenged and banished, you may return chosen character to their player's hand. So we're going on an assumption here, but based on the templating, which is what the cards say and how they're presented to us, Cruella kind of is the biggest information giver because she specifically states when this character is challenged and banished, you can do a thing. So that's cost and effect. So I'm going to make a couple of speculative assumptions here, but Disney making a trading card game is probably not going to give players life totals like Magic and say, okay, when you reduce their life totals and you kill that opponent, you win the game. Just because that's not a very Disney-esque style of playing.
That's very accurate, by the way, guys. It is. No, and I'm going to give you guys a little feedback on that. So in the comic book world, if you guys look at any Marvel comic books, they actually specifically don't do any covers in Marvel that feature a massive amount of blood, like a lot of independence.
Sure.
So it's just part of that marketing. So I think that concept of the banish will kind of like the Pokemon fainted.
Yeah. Pokemon don't die. They just pass out from exhaustion.
They live forever.
Yeah. So if you look at Cruella and you take experience from all these games, she specifically says when this character is challenged and banished. So based on that templating, it sounds like Yu-Gi-Oh! Where you pick your creature or character in this game and you target an opponent's character and you attack them directly. Instead of in Magic, you attack the player and the player defending can choose to use their creatures and monsters to block the incoming assault.
Yeah, and and same thing like in Pokemon as well, where you have to attack the opposing person, just Pokemon that's out there in the playfield.
Right. I'm going to make another assumption though. Now this is 100% speculation. Please don't come back to
everything. Everything. Spoilers. It's all speculation.
Yeah. So in interviews, the game was described as you are an Illumineer. So you're a Planeswalker, you're a Pokemon trainer, whatever. You're a duelist. Yu-Gi-Oh!
Heart of the Disney.
The heart of the cards. So you're going on quests. And it sounds like the game is going to have some board game aspects where, unlike Magic and Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon, you're not necessarily dueling head-to-head trying to kill each other or, knock out your opponent's Pokemon. But I believe, I'm just guessing, but I believe that there's going to be kind of like Warhammer, and Chris will love this, there's probably going to be quest cards between the players. Sure. And you actually send characters to these quest locations. And so based on the challenging and banishment, I think that those pips on the right hand side are like a form of influence, and so after a turn, whoever has the most influence at a quest will gain it or get a special bonus or something. Something will happen. So you're never actively like fist fighting mano-a-mano. You're just going to these different worlds, kind of like Kingdom Hearts style, and you're sending these characters to reinforce a zone or whatever it's going to be called. And that's why I really feel like the characters are going to fight amongst themselves. Now, there's a million different questions, like can you have multiple characters attack one character? Does damage stay on a character? Do they heal after the end of the turn? So on and so forth. And that's stuff we'll talk about way in the future. But going back to
So just general terms, right? We're just in terms right now. We're not going to,
Yeah. So for general terms, cost and effect, Cruella is another great example. Cost is when this character is challenged and banished. Cost. The effect is you may return chosen character to their player hand. So it's basically A, then B. So look for this terminology whenever you see a card, because I guarantee a lot of the trading card game players and the people who've been playing for a long time are going to reference this term a lot, because the power level of a card is relative to what do I have to pay and what do I get in return for those resources spent.
Exactly. And just for our first podcast, this is our first, like, we're assuming a lot of new players. The templating of these cards, and we'll have some examples on our media sources. In the upper left, we assume, I think we all agree that that's the resource cost. So for Captain Hook, that would be, and we don't know what the resource system is, but he would cost 1 and have, this ability of a challenger +2. Whereas you go to somebody like Maleficent, it's 9 costs, right? Huge costs.
She's dragon.
But her ability is when she comes to the game, immediately banish somebody. So I mean, like, that's when you talk about these cards and the power level of them, as Sugi just said, you really have to compare the cost you're paying for whatever ability you're getting.
Because like Maleficent is a really good example. This card is baffling to me because
why is that?
You're getting a 7/5 body, so 7 attack, 5 defense. You're paying 9. I'm going to say mana a lot. I know it's not mana, but I'm a Magic player. It's just built into my head.
And you can say resources.
Yeah,
but resources. That's not the cool way, man.
Listen here, we got to be inclusive to everyone, right?
Okay, so we'll say 9 Disney bucks. How about
if you say mana, I'm going to get hungry. I think it's food.
I like Disney bucks.
So you spend 9 Disney dollars to summon Maleficent. So what's interesting to me is her cost and effect is when you play the character, which makes me guess again, a big assumption that there might be counter spells or abilities, because otherwise it would just say, play the character, do a thing, but it says when you play this character. So I'm like, why is there a when? Anyways, we're getting into the sticks.
Yeah.
But when you play the character, cost, effect, you may banish chosen opposing character. So you just kill something and send it off. But then if
not kill, Sugi.
That's right.
We don't
banish.
Kill.
You ride off into the sunset.
You erase it. It just gets erased with the pen.
There you go. Yeah, the pencil stands. You get remixed into a live action television movie. But here's the thing, in trading card games, and this is a great segue, but most abilities and cards have things called summoning sickness, which we'll talk about right now. And in Magic, that means when you play a creature onto your battlefield, you can't do anything with it until your next turn. So you pay the mana cost or resource cost, and then it just sits there. It's interesting about Maleficent and her 9 Disney bucks cost is if she comes into play and immediately removes a threat from your board, and then she can attack. Well, all the other things that we've seen are like, 3 defense, 4 defense for Robin Hood. Mickey's 5.
You just need a Cruella, and you solve all your problems.
Yeah. So it's interesting because if creatures or characters don't have summoning sickness in this game, then Maleficent could easily be a 2-for-1 where you slap her down, you banish something, and then you attack with her or challenge something and kill them too. And now you've just taken out 2 problems with 1 body, and that's pretty cool. So in my brain, that's kind of justifying the 9 resource cost, because like 9 resources is a lot. It's a lot, especially with what we've seen at the lower thresholds, like Elsa for 3. Gross, really gross. I'd rather have 3 Elsas, honestly, because it's like, no, you're not going to do anything here tonight.
Now, that's actually a question too about how many if we have the same characters or legendary rule, that type of stuff. I will just say about Maleficent before we go on to James. It's a 9 cost to do what you're saying, Sugi, but she only has 2 of those pips, whereas somebody like Mickey Mouse and Taylor has 4?
4.
Yeah, 4.
So double the amount for 1 less cost. So I mean, again, if that's the assumption is that these pips are the way you're going to win the game to actually, get your victory condition, that she's not really, she's controlling the board. She's clearing out stuff for you. She's a big baddie, but she's not directly helping you. You can't use her to get a victory condition, right?
Well, okay. Counterpoint. So if Mickey Mouse, the brave little tailor, is sitting on the opposite side of the table and he's got evasive, which states only characters with evasive can challenge this character. So basically, if you don't have evasive, you can't like fight them. However, Maleficent doesn't care about that. And if indeed Mickey is scoring a lot of these theoretical, influence points, you just slap her down on the table and just banish him immediately. And then you can use her to challenge something else that doesn't have elusive. And then boom, all of those pips that we're speculating about don't exist, and you do.
I wonder if those pips are like that. I wonder if when you play the character, you acquire those pips in some sort of like token.
Sure.
Yeah, that's been something people have thought about. That might be like a resource mechanic.
So you get the payoff right away.
Right. Like in Destiny. Remember how we had the resource tokens in Destiny?
Right.
Like something like that, maybe.
The only reason I just can't get behind it is if you look at the templating of the cards, they're very, very succinct with
very true,
symbols doing specific things.
Yes.
So if it had the same symbol as that hexagon.
Oh, that makes sense. That makes sense. Yes, that makes sense. It does not.
Yeah. So that's the big reason why. And based off, I've played some Ravensburger games. I think it's a mechanic that's going to interact with questing. Again, we're
this is true. This is true. Also, I think you're right about that. I think this game will be similar to like the concept of like Pokemon, like the classic sheet. Like there'll be no extra components needed other than dice to keep track of like health.
There's another, again, it could be too, we're going on that path now, but one thing I've thought about is what if, and I don't know if you guys played Warhammer 40K, the LCG, but that had a system where you were trying to take over these planets, right? So if that, like actual physical locations, there were 7 on the board, or you played with 5 actually, and the first person to get 3 of the same color they were trying to collect, they would win the game. So if a similar thing here with quests, right? Like you could only challenge somebody, or Maleficent's ability only works on a character at that same location or that same quest.
Yeah.
That actually would make a lot more sense, right? Because then it's not just talking about a whole board. That, I mean, obviously, as Sugi's implying, that's really powerful to say, like, you have Mickey out there, you spend 8 resources, well, I'm going to spend 1 more and just destroy him, right? And still have a big body. So I'm interested to see if like the actual quest, there's like, whether you want to say quest lanes or quest locations, whatever it is.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense for the competitive aspect of it. In essence, for example, like end of turn, whoever has the most amount of pips at set location gains that location, or like they score the points off of that, and then whoever does so many points wins. So like where you deviate your pips is very important, or whether you want to like, I put all my defensive players in this location.
Right.
I better put all my attackers over here. That is true, because like it doesn't just, if you play the Maleficent, then there has to be some. It probably target just players on that area.
That's the hill I'm standing on. Now, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But just based off of,
I can't wait to see what it actually is.
Right, we're just totally wrong.
I hope I'm totally wrong, but
Me
I
too.
mean, it just makes. Thanks, man. I appreciate your vote of confidence here.
Yeah, that's gonna be fun.
All right, so let's pitch you another question. We'll talk about Robin Hood. Feed the poor. When you play this character, if an opponent has more cards in their hand than you, draw a card. Let's talk about a term I've already seen being thrown around: card advantage.
Oh, my favorite word. But
that's 2 words. There's no hyphen.
Oh, god dang it! You're right. I apologize. So I think it's a concept of that. Like Sugi, Chris, you guys can attest to this, especially in our copious games of Destiny, where cards becoming such a valuable resource. I mean, just like everything, like just like Magic having the ability to have more cards than the opponent, and Pokemon being able to tutor, search for anything, and have more cards in hand than the opponent. Controlling that hand size and having more options is such a crucial impact on these competitive games.
On a base level, it depends on if the cards are used to generate resources, if the cards are used to defend in any way. But even the base level of the cards are having, the more cards you have, the more options you have, right? The other question becomes: do you draw cards up to your hand limit each turn? Do you only get a card a turn? Unless a card effect lets you draw more. So these are all types of questions that matter. But in the end, generally, having more cards is better, just because you're going to have more options at the base level without having answering any of those other questions.
Correct.
Right.
And I was going to say, it doesn't seem like so far with the cards that we've seen. Obviously, we've seen 7 cards. 7 cards, guys.
Right.
It appears to be no tutoring engine, as in no search engine, which is something I very much enjoy. That I think the Pokemon aspect has gone insane on, where the ability to search for whatever card you want.
That just slows down games so much. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's actually a really important term I wanted to bring up next. So great pull. Tutoring comes from Magic the Gathering, and there were a lot of cards in the black color that had, a word in front of it and said tutor. So, demonic tutor, magical tutor, mystic tutor, that was blue, so on and so forth. And so Magic the Gathering kind of facilitated tutoring as a classic game mechanic where you play a card and it says search your deck for, a hero, or search your deck for an Elsa, or search your deck for a character with 1 or less power. And so you have the ability to turn one card into a multitude of different things by digging into your deck and pulling out the item that you need at a given point. And so, yeah, tutoring, we haven't seen it yet, which I wouldn't be surprised if we see something that helps. Most games have some sort of tutoring effect just because your deck size is predominantly, on average, 40 to 60 cards, and you're going to have multiple copies of a card. And so, if you really need to see that Maleficent because Mickey is just untouchable and you need to win this fight, cool. You're going to want to try and find a card that says, search for Maleficent. Okay, great.
I just want, this is a aside. I just want to throw, do you guys believe that? I believe that each card, Captain Hook, Forceful Duelist, that would be, this is another term we can talk about, would be a legendary type thing where you can only have one Captain Hook, Forceful Duelist on the board at a time.
No, I think that's just flavor text.
Okay.
I think it's typing.
It's just flavor, that's because I think it's just flavor text. I think that's the flavor text, maybe a little extra, but or it could be. It's hard.
Do you think you could have 3 Captain Hooks out there at the same time?
Yeah, I don't see why not.
Yeah,
okay.
I feel like you could have 3 or 4. That's kind of the industry standard. I think the Forceful Duelist term, I can't remember where I heard or saw this because I've just been absorbing so much Lorcana information, but I think they said that term is going to set availability for future Captain Hooks. So like if the game says you can have 3 Captain Hooks in your deck, then if they come out with Captain Hook, a mad captain, then you could only have a combination of Forceful Duelists and then the next name. So I think that's why the title is there, not necessarily as flavor text, but more of as an identifier.
Ooh, which version it is.
Yeah,
like
which version
of this character? Because there's going to be 800 Mickey Mouses.
Exactly.
Sugi laughs, but he knows.
But I partly agree with you, but I am standing by, and I'll be interested to see who wins this battle. I will stand by that. I think you can only have so you can only have one Captain Hook out there. You can only have one. I think Stitch also supports my position a little bit, because if you look at Stitch, and again, we're going to have a whole episode about the cards, but Stitch talks about, I would say, more of a Pokemon mechanic where you're going to upgrade. So basically it says shift 4. You may pay 4 resources to play this on top of one of your Stitch characters.
But that means you can have multiple.
Yes. Well, no, I mean to my point, it means that the Stitch Rockstar is going to go on top of Stitch from the beach.
But what is the interesting part is what do you gain by doing that? Yeah, we have no idea what you gain. You just put on top of the other one. Yeah,
you save 2 resources so the shift cost is 2 less resources than the playing Stitch Rockstar outright. So you save. So let's assume that you played a Stitch, a 1-cost Stitch. Yeah. You hard cast a 1-cost Stitch. The next turn you're able to shift 4 into the Stitch Rockstar and get a better version of them out. You saved 1 resource and you probably got whatever maybe on playability the first Stitch gave you. So anyways, I don't want to give the cards too much, but I just wanted to go that side that I'm standing here right now, LorcanaCast, and telling everybody that I think that you can only have 1 character out there at a time of the name.
I think you'll be able to have 4 total of the names if it's a 60 card deck.
In your deck, I agree with. I'm saying on the board.
On the game state.
Yes.
Interesting.
I agree with you guys. In your deck, you could have. I think, as Sugi said, you could have maybe a Stitch Rockstar, a Stitch on the beach, Stitch in the tree. You have a max of 4 of the different titles of Stitches in your deck. I'm talking about actually on the play field. You can only have 1 Stitch at a time.
Gotcha. Oh. I need Stitch with the bra on his ears as Batman.
It'd be Batman Stitch.
Yeah, Stitch, Batman. I'm Batman.
So for me, as someone who's played a couple competitive games, I feel that would slow the game down. having the ability to not be able to, play cards out of your hand, or having the ability to like, oh, I really like this Rockstar one, so I want to play 4 of these, and I want to play 4 of like the basic stitches so I can do the combo as consistently as possible. If this game doesn't have any tutor, then you have to rely on like which engine. You're going to go on the consistency engine, or you're going to go on the tutor engine. So I think I hope that they do the ability where like, oh, I want to play 4 of the Rockstars. That's my favorite version, and I'll pick out 4 of the smaller ones. But I hope you could be able to play all 4 at once, or like up to the 4.
And Flesh and Blood, it's a very different game than a lot of these games, but the unique rule is by the title and color. So like in Flesh and Blood, the resource management has a color-based system. There's blue, red, and yellow cards. So a unique card, like, so there may be a card that says even bigger than that, and that there's a red version, a yellow version, a blue version, and you could have 3 of each of those in your deck, so a total of 9. But the 3 red versions, 3 yellow versions, 3 blue versions, because those are all considered unique cards.
All right, so let's talk about something you actually kind of mentioned. Hardcast is really simple. That means the number on the top left, you pay the full resource. And then, for Stitch, it's 6 to hardcast it, or you can cheat it out with the shift ability that costs you 4 resources. So you get a discount of 2. But the one word you said that was really important that has also been thrown around a lot already is when a card enters the battlefield, better known as ETB. And Maleficent is the perfect example of an ETB. So who wants to kind of, tell us a little bit more about these terms?
I don't know what ETB means, so I'm looking forward to learning.
Oh, that's right. Pokemon. Yeah, you should know this.
You go ahead, Sugi.
So ETB means enter the battlefield, and that's from Magic the Gathering.
Oh,
and so,
I thought you meant like Elite Trainer Box. I'm like, what a trainer box?
No. Well, and that's the thing is these
that's
terms.
The purchase. That's the purchase episode. Yeah, it's a buying episode. Yeah.
I was so confused. I was like, the Maleficent going to come in ETB?
No,
that's odd.
Yeah, buy a Pokemon Elite Trainer box, get a Maleficent promo. Right. But there's that's kind of the reason why we're having this talk is there's so many terms across the board, and it's very confusing if you don't know. But yeah, Magic the Gathering says when this creature enters the battlefield, do a thing, and Maleficent is basically the same thing. When you play this character. When this character enters the battlefield, ETB, you banish a chosen character. So I've already seen people talk about Maleficent and they go, man, that's a really good ETB. And then, what does that mean? Enter the battlefield. Super simple, very, very powerful because here's a combo. And I love this that I really think Ryan Miller, the guy who has been doing interviews online through the D23, he's mentioned multiple times that players who play trading card games are going to find these really interesting combos and things that they've kind of laid the groundwork for. And the moment I saw Cruella and I saw Maleficent, think about this combo. Cruella de Vil says, when this character is challenged and banished, you may return chosen character to their player's hand. It doesn't say a specific character, it just says chosen character.
Right.
So you can bounce, this is another term we're going to talk about. You can bounce your Maleficent back to your hand, slap her down, and banish something a second time after Cruella, bites the dust. Or you can use Cruella to, remove a threat that you just don't have an answer for. But it's really interesting because you can have a setup where you lay Cruella de Vil onto a location. Your opponent challenges her and kills her, or banishes her, I'm sorry. And then boom, all right, her effect goes off and you go, all right, I'm going to bounce Maleficent back to my hand. And then on your turn, because Cruella is probably going to be challenged on your opponent's turn, you drop, 9 resources and blammo, you've got a giant body and you've got another removal spell online. And it's like, wow, that's kind of gross. That's really gross if you think about it.
Do you think that Cruella's text talks about the card just for her own card? No. It only works on just Cruella?
No, it says you may return chosen character. Oh, when she is challenged.
When this character is challenged, you may return chosen character. As in, Cruella being the chosen character?
No. So this is cost and effect. So cost is she has to be challenged and banished. Then you can bounce something.
The whole thing has happened.
May return chosen character.
Yeah. So she's got to go to in Magic and Yu-Gi-Oh! The term is the graveyard or discard pile, whatever you want to call it. So basically, she has to be challenged and she has to go to the discard pile. Then her ability will proc and
that has to trigger once it hits the graveyard. Then it triggers, and then you can choose any character. Right?
Yes, correct.
It's weird that this doesn't use the word any.
Well, I assume that this is also template. And again, I don't know how we want to go to deep with each individual card, but I assume also that is for multiplayer, right? So you can send your partner, your whoever you're playing with, card, help them out, get a card back to their hand.
Well, but it's weird they don't say the word any, right? You may return
Chosen
any character.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say that there will be characters that cannot be chosen / targeted.
Oh,
Sure.
Because if it said any, it would get around abilities that say this character cannot be chosen for abilities and effects.
Fascinating. Okay, that makes a lot more sense then.
Kind of like elusive states. So elusive is only characters with elusive can challenge this character. Or sorry, evasive. Only characters with evasive can challenge this character. I wouldn't be surprised if there's another keyword that says
you can't choose them.
This character cannot be chosen for effects and abilities.
I like that. That makes so much more sense, and it's good. See, it's all, and it's like to explain that to the people as well. Like, all right, this is a little extra on information on like why that doesn't work and why it does.
Yeah, and again, once again, we can't stress enough. This is all speculation, but we've been playing the game long enough that I'm pretty confident that the templating of these cards, although they're really cool, there's a lot of hints and a lot of subtext that we can kind of read into, because I agree with you. I thought that exactly the same thing. I was like, why doesn't it say any character? And then I was like, oh, it says chosen. Why would it say chosen? You have to choose. And in Magic, that would be targeting, which means you have to pick a thing and point at it and go, hey, that's what I want to use my effect on. So if it doesn't say any, then there has to be a reason why choosing a character is relevant, which would suspect that you can't choose certain characters because of some kind of protection ability.
I mean, I completely agree with that. It's I think that's just another mechanic that I feel is very important to have in card games when you're building that competitive structure deck. Where you're like, all right, I want to counter for this, and then you put that in there. Yeah. I mean, it makes perfect sense.
So wild speculation. We'll come back to this one. We'll come back to episode 1 in like a year.
I love it.
This is my super spicy Sugi prediction. I believe that there is going to be a middle to low cost character that is going to come out. So like Tinkerbell. I also do not work for this company, and I do not have any inside information if this happens to be true. I'm just saying this right now, because if I'm right, people are going to be like, how does he know? Oh, well, I talked to Matt Groening from The Simpsons. He downloaded me some future information. So I'm going to guess that there's going to be a middle to low resource cost character with abysmal stats, probably like a 0-1 or a 0-2, something super bad. They're going to have a bunch of pips on their right side. They're going to have like 4 or 5 pips, and they're going to just have one keyword in it. It's just going to say this character cannot be targeted by effects. So they cannot be chosen for abilities. They cannot be chosen for effects. And they're also going to have evasive. Only characters with evasive can challenge this character. So you're going to drop this really weak thing onto a quest and go, if you can't kill it, I'm going to score this quest. Haha.
Sure.
I mean, I love that. I think that's very important, and it's just part of the gameplay. Maybe try to make it thematic, but it'll be interesting to see what color that card will go in, because you have the 5 colors, and I think you have the 5 colors like Magic. Then you have the gray that can go in any deck. I think the deck might have to be like the same character, maybe, or same. You think the decks have to have like the same color type, or you think?
Oh man, we'll have to talk about that on the future.
Right, because you could have the 5 colors, and then you have Captain Hook, which is gray.
Evil, you're an evil man. You're bringing up something I so want to talk about really bad, but we got to save it for another episode, my man.
All right.
Yeah, you're just a tease, James.
I don't know how much more terms we have, but I have one term I want to talk about because it's my favorite term in card games, and it is mill. So,
yes.
So I personally,
gross.
I am a dirty mill player. You can see the reaction to the word mill already on this podcast.
You are a dirty man.
Hold on. I am also a mill player. I am a clean, person.
You are just less dirty.
Oh.
So mill comes from, and Sugi help me if I remember. It's I think it's millstone.
Millstone
from Magic the Gathering. And again, we need to know more. We need more information about how the card game works and how the decking works. But assumably, most card games, some don't, but generally they do have an ability where if you cannot draw a card, so in Magic, if you need to draw a card and you can't draw one, you lose the game. The game's over, right? So in Flesh and Blood, a game that I'm really into right now, if you can't draw a card, the game continues, but you can't draw any cards in Flesh and Blood. The cards are used to block, cards are used as resources, cards are used for everything. So if you can't draw one, if you have no cards, you generally are going to lose the game because you can't do anything. So most games have a balance like of that nature, where either you're going to lose the game if you can't draw a card, or it's just going to make it so that you are going to lose the game by effect. So I'm really interested to see if Mill will be in this game. And I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. I enjoy Mill. Again, I want this game to be more about me playing my kid, so maybe I don't want to mill my kid out, but we'll see.
So I don't enjoy Mill, and I will never play a Mill deck. And I hope Mill is terrible in this format. And that is how I feel.
And why don't you like? Okay, well, I'll also add on. Maybe people don't like Mill because generally Mill decks are not interactive. Like in a lot of card games, the basic rules of games are you do something, I do something. In most of these card games, you interact with each other. I can respond to what you're doing, or I'm trying to build a board to of monsters or characters or Disney characters to take over all the quest points. Right? That's generally I have a plan. And Mill is just like I'm just going to try to reduce your options. I'm going to try to get cards out of your hand, get cards out of your deck, so your plan doesn't work. So you're actively running, kind of running against the fundamentals of the game in a different way that's outside the normal of the game, I guess is a way I would explain that.
So I love Mill. I am an evil person, but I also take people out for, food and dessert. So I pay for my sins with, a good meal and a good time. I'm on the fence here because I love Mill. And if you notice, a lot of these terms come from Magic the Gathering. Not surprising because it's the oldest game. However,
by far, yeah.
Yeah. As Chris was talking about Mill, you might have noticed that it's not very player friendly. You'll hear this term NPE, negative player experience. Mill decks generally are pretty hated across the board because if I am a Mill player, my entire job is to remove any and all resources you might have had to win by one of the most difficult and arduous ways to play the game. So you show up to a game, you've built your deck, you've bought your cards, you're really excited, and I sit on the other side and go, okay, cool, discard 10 cards from your deck. Wait, what? Okay, cool, discard 3 more. Okay, I'm going to discard 4 more, and then I'm going to discard 5 more, and I pass. Oh, okay, well, then I'll draw a card, and then I attack you. Okay, cool. Anything else? No. All right, next turn. Discard 5 more cards.
Yeah.
What? Discard 6 more cards now. What? Well, I don't have anything left. Oh, well, good game. That was fun, right? And that's a very, hilarious kind of, satirical version of a game, but it's not super fun for the person who is being milled, which leads me to believe that since this game is meant to be more family friendly and more fun,
probably not going to be there.
I feel like milling to win either won't exist, or if it does exist, the abilities on cards aren't going to be nearly as potent as Magic has been.
Correct. It's going to take the more Pokemon aspect to it, where there have been not dedicated mill, but more of stall as they put up a wall Pokemon, and they just goal is just like to have them draw out, and like there hasn't been too many competitively ranked like mill decks in the format. But there isn't really too much of it out there.
yeah, I actually love
not like in Magic.
Deck.
Like Magic, there's probably 10 times more mill decks than there are Pokemon, and I think Disney will probably take the Pokemon aspect in that.
And even in Magic, it's fairly limited, right? I mean, like even with cards printed to actually mill, you'll have metas where it's more popular, less popular. But I still say, it's on the like 10% decks maybe. It's not a very popular meta type.
Yeah, I think the prominence or lack of milling effects will really denote which direction Ravensburger wants to take the game. Because if we see mill, I'm not opposed to it. It is beatable. Like, don't get me wrong. Mill decks are very, very inconsistent and they're very squishy. So if you don't get the combo you need or your opponent kills some of your creatures, you're just kind of going to lose. So as annoying as it can be, absolutely beatable. Yeah, I think we'll have to wait and see what spoilers we get and then determine where the game is going. But if I had to guess, probably Disney friendly. So it's going to be a little bit more, go to questing zone, quest, gain points, stuff like that.
Right.
I have a question for the chat, for you guys. What do you think? We've been doing kind of like speculation, right? We've been kind of skirting along like how you would pay for like the 9 cost Maleficent, the 8 cost Mickey. I was wondering, I wonder how you actually generate resources. Because the trick is, like, if you start the game with no characters, like, where do you get the resources from then to play your first character?
So there's a color system, right? So either we're going to, have a commander of some kind that dictates what colors you could be in. That's a separate question. But I say that because that's going to dictate, where these cards are going to start in your game, right? And like what type of deck you're going to be building. I'm still not convinced that the pips are for questing. I think that's a distinct possibility, but I think there could be an argument made that the pips are used as a resource system as well. So if you look at something like Dragon Ball Super, you actually each turn you could take one of your cards and you could put it in a different zone, and that could be that you could once per turn do that. You could get one resource per turn. So by turn 3, you have 3 resources. You take a card out of your hand, you just tap it, you exert it to indicate that you want to use that as a resource. So that's one system. There's in Flesh and Blood, it would be you would get rid of a card, you would pitch a card, you put a card in your pitch zone, and that like for like Mickey in this game would be 4 resources. You would pitch him. You would say, "I'm going to use Mickey to pay for pay for a Stitch, pay for a shift on Stitch." Right. So there's many ways you could do it. I'm interested to see where Sugi is. I know he's very convinced that the pips are quest, which I think they definitely could be quest.
Yeah, there's a lot of potentiality here, but we are getting kind of deep into the show, so I want to go over a couple fundamental terms that I've seen on social media, and then let's talk about something really quickly, kind of alluding to a future episode. So first up, FLGS, Friendly Local Game Store.
That's what that stands for?
I mean, there's some other words it could stand for, but it's a family-friendly show, so don't you know?
That's very true. That's very true.
The shortened version of that you'll see is LGS, which means local game store. So you may or may not have a friendly local game store. But if you see those terms, that's what it stands for, and it's all in caps.
You probably do have friendly local games. You probably have a game store in your community that sells Magic, sells these card games, and that's a really big part of what I try to do in the Twin Cities is organize these game stores around the games I like to play, because a lot of these stores need help doing that. They can't. There's so many card games out there, so many miniatures games, they can't keep up with all of it. So I think that's something that I'm really going to be focused on our podcast too, is try to give tips about how you could be a good community liaison and help with your stores, especially get involved in supporting this game, because that's really where the meat of these games are, right? You need a place to play them at. You can't, you play in person generally, so you need a location to do that, and your friendly local game store is the heart of that, in my opinion.
Yeah, and the other big thing, realistically, is that's the place you should support, if at all possible. I do understand, there's all kinds of financial things going on in the world. Times are tough. Not everybody has access to all of the funding that they want. But if you've got a place that you play and it's not terrible and they treat you well, and it's a friendly local game store, please, please, please support them by buying product. Please don't go to Amazon. Don't go online. I mean, I know I love a good discount, but the thing is, if you don't support your friendly local game store, they won't survive.
And that speaks to the competitive aspect of the game, where if you want to have a place to actually play the game with your friends and support the competitive scene, where you can probably have tournaments, those are the shops that'll host the tournaments, things like that.
Organized play, that's where you get it.
Right. I mean, even if I want to play with my daughter, which is my plan, you still at some point, inevitably want to get out of the house and play with other people. There's only so much you could do when you're playing with one other person, right? Like, you want to play different types of decks, different types of players, different skill levels. So that's really where you need a community. And I found that those communities are best built at your friendly local game stores.
All right. So the last thing I want to talk about before we get on out of here, and this is going to be really short because we're actually going to have a full episode talking about this in the future. We want to do weekly content once the game drops, but right now we only have 7 cards and a very limited amount of content. So LorcanaCast will be coming to your local podcast store every 2 to 3 weeks, just so that we have time to talk about content, we can come up with good show notes, and entertain our listeners. But this is something I want to spend maybe 5-10 minutes talking about, and that is the secondary market. This is something a lot of people have been talking about. There's been a lot of buzz about the Mickey card and the 6 Lorcana cards, the first edition D23 printing, just because Mickey is going out for about an average of 150 to 300 each.
And mostly on that bigger end number.
Yeah. And then the actual set of 6 cards that you could buy for $50 at the D23 Expo is going for around $2,000 to $3,000. So currently, these prices are really high because this is a super popular game. And it just got sold and announced like what, a week ago, 2 weeks ago?
2 weeks ago.
Give or take.
There's a couple of things to look at. If you've never dealt with the trading card games in the past, some cards are going to be more expensive than other cards. That's the way it is. That's kind of like what there's a secondary market. That when we mean secondary market, we're talking about that you go to the store, you buy the packs for whatever they're going to be, $3-4, whatever the creator sells them for, or the friendly local game store sells them for. But then, depending on the rarity of the cards and what you pull, you're going to try. You can sell those to your friends, or sell them on eBay, or sell them online to other people that may want those cards for their deck or their special version of the card, that kind of thing. So this all goes back to, one of the things you might hear again, Magic. Magic's been around for 25, 30 years. One of the rarest cards of that game was called the Black Lotus, and that was
why do you say that, man?
I'm just saying that again, we're talking about a very specific. There's been many versions of that card, but there's cards that are called the Power 9, right? And when you get in this area, you hear about these cards that are printed first, and they were very powerful cards, and they were rare, especially certain versions of them. Because we'll get into the future episodes. We assume that there'll be various printings of sets, right? And so the first printing of a set typically is going to be more valuable than the second printing of a set or the third printing of a set. And that's because that's just how we value things. It's the first printing. You're the first one to have these cards. So I say all that to say that in this game, as far as we know so far, the creators have told us that all the cards are going to be available to everybody, which I think is a great thing. They're going to do different treatments. So we compared to Magic, the fact was that not everybody had a Black Lotus, right? In this game, everybody could probably have a Mickey the Taylor card. It sounds like that's going to happen. It just wouldn't have a D23 stamp. That's going to be the difference. So it's not going to be a question, at least intentionally, from the developer, that they're going to limit the types of cards to certain players, so you won't be able to make a deck you want or get a character you want. It's going to be a question of like we might have sell foil cards at an expo or
the pay to play, that whole pay to play
actually
aspect,
boost up or make people have pretty decks, but you still can get that same card from a pack or from the secondary market.
And I mean that's a great synopsis of a future episode, because there's a lot more details in what you just talked about. There's price, popularity, rarity, desirability, playability, and that's a really fun topic to really chew into. But I think that this is just a great stopping point because for those of you who are listening, there's, as you can probably tell, a lot of stuff revolving around trading card games. There's terminology, there's value, there's assessed value, there's estimated value, there's playability. I mean, like there's a lot to go through. And if you have any questions, if something went over your head, if there was a term we talked about that didn't quite make sense, feel free to send us a message on Twitter and Facebook at LorcanaCast. And you can always, holler at us in the show notes, because we're going to be on, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you're listening to this. We want to interact with all of our listeners. And a really great way to, find us and talk to us directly is going to be through Lorcana HQ. They've got a giant Facebook group. They've got a Discord. I'm in there already. So, you can just at me, the Sug one, and say, hey, Sugi, I heard about this, blah, blah, blah. What's that all about? And I'll be more than happy to talk to you about all those details. But any last thoughts before we get on out of here?
I just want to say I'm really excited to be on this journey with you guys, and great first podcast.
I'm looking forward to this magical adventure.
Is there a carpet involved?
No.
Oh, okay.
But I need you to show me the world with shining and shimmering splendor. Tell me, James. Now, when did you last let your heart decide?
Oh, wow. So you look for it
yourself.
You got to be really careful. I can quote things.
Yeah, that's really nice. That's good.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us again. Find us on Twitter and Facebook at LorcanaCast. Check out Lorcana HQ, and we will see you next episode.
The sticky wheels always get